The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
Meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
Hi, Riley. It's getting hotter.
It
you know?
is,
We're feeling
yes.
it. So over the weekend, temperatures were fine, just breezy. Right, red flag warning went into effect. First of
Yeah.
the season.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's California,
right.
and now it's all about the heat
It is.
today. Probably in the low 90s for highs. Still
Yeah,
waiting on that official high, but yeah,
and even tomorrow in the 90s too. I
yeah.
don't really mind it too much. It feels it's not too bad for me. The only time I do feel it because I've not turned the air conditioning on yet in the house.
Really?
No,
Wow,
not yet.
impressive.
Not yet.
Way to hold out.
I know, right? Except the top floor right now is hot at
Heat
night.
rises.
Yep,
That's physics
I
for
definitely
you.
feel that.
And on the topic of heat and the upcoming summer season, I figured this episode for Atmospheric Impacts it'd be perfect to talk about our seasonal outlooks.
Mhm.
So first up from the National Weather Service, we have our 3-month outlook. So this is essentially summer, June, July, and August. On the left side of your screen, you have your precipitation outlook, and no surprise here, we have odds being equal chances for above or below normal precipitation. But it is worth noting that our normal precip for these months is 0.
Right.
So it's pretty hard to get below that. So not expecting anything there, but there's that carve out over Arizona
Mhm.
that has above normal. You might be thinking, well, what's going on there? Monsoon moisture, right?
Yeah.
Creeping up from the Pacific or the Gulf. Sometimes it crosses over there. But this has a connection to what's on the right side of your screen, the seasonal temperature outlook, right? All of that is warmer than normal, except for some parts of the Midwest.
Mhm.
And that has the connection to the super El Nino that's forming, right? So warmer ocean waters generally results in warmer air. And then this could result in a stronger monsoon season in
Mhm.
the desert Southwest. So that's why you have the above normal by Arizona.
Yeah, it could because last year we were talking about this, and I started here last year, that it really wasn't hot. I mean, we had some hot days, but
Hmm.
compared to what 2024, right,
Yep.
was the insane hot year.
It was record breaking. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And, it's interesting because anecdotally, people will think back to last summer and say, yeah, it really wasn't that
Mhm.
bad. And I literally heard this over the weekend with some friends playing volleyball outside. Like, last summer was cool. No, not really. Actually, last summer was normal, but we are so conditioned to expecting the heat and those high temperatures that a normal summer to us feels refreshing.
Mhm.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird,
Yeah.
and it's interesting too because people here it's a mixed bag. But at the studio, some people really love the heat, and
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh, it doesn't bother me at all." And then other people are like, "Okay, this is way too hot for us."
Yeah,
But if
right.
you look at it, our normal is 81 right now, right?
Yeah,
81.
low 80s for this time of year, right?
Yeah, and we're in the mid-90s, so significant difference.
Yeah, and if that has a connection to the temperatures of the ocean in the South Pacific, probably not yet, but generally this summer, right, coming up with those warm ocean waters, that translates into heat and energy in the atmosphere, and that fuels
Mhm.
heat, likely record-breaking heat and different rain patterns around the globe. And this causes some problems that ripple towards us. So maybe in Northern California, we are not extremely directly affected here. But around the world, areas that rely on monsoon moisture maybe don't get the same amount or in the same location, and they rely on crops, right?
Mhm.
The moisture for those crops. So we could see this cascading effect of crop shortages,
Yeah.
and that could be really devastating in places like Indonesia and around India. Uh, these are some really sad impacts to think about if the super El Nino does form, which it's very likely at this point it will.
Mhm.
And then you also have hurricane season, right? You'd expect more warmth to provide more energy for hurricanes to feed on. And that's going to impact the US, not us here on the West Coast,
Right.
but our friends in the East and down by the Gulf states.
Yeah, and we always think about this too, the long-term effects, and you were talking about food and crops, and food's already expensive as it is,
Yeah.
and when we have these shortages, it just, gets worse.
Right. And I don't know if there's a contingency plan for some of these areas
Mhm.
that need this rain, rely on it.
Mhm.
This is their culture, this is their life, this is their economy.
Yeah,
And if the rains don't come, the crops die. I don't really know what happens.
right.
Moving on to like the same vein of rain and needing it for crops, here in California specifically, we look okay for a seasonal drought outlook. We actually had a pretty decent water year despite how it felt
Mhm.
because it was a game of runs. It was wet, it was dry, it was wet, it was dry. Overall, we got to about normal for most of the state and above normal in Southern California.
Mhm.
That's why the white you see there in Southern California is no drought expected. Good
Right.
news.
Yeah.
And then here, the yellows, that means drought development is likely.
Mhm.
But yeah, it could be way worse. It has been way worse.
Absolutely. You look at the states, I mean, it makes sense too, because look at the snow drought that Colorado had in
Mm,
Utah this year. I mean, they hardly got anything. And so, I mean, it makes sense that you're seeing, more of the drought conditions to our east and parts of the Great
right.
Basin area.
And that brown is drought persisting, right? Not even drought
Yeah.
developing. It's already there.
Right.
It's going to persist. And an interesting part of that too is as we go across the country, we look to the East Coast, the Appalachians, and you have drought persisting there too, which is abnormal. In the East, when I worked in Maine,
Mhm.
my the chief meteorologist there, I would talk about the drought uh, monitor, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't pay too much attention to that." It's like, "Why? We're in a drought right now." He's like, "Yeah, some people use well water, and they're affected by it because the water table decreases. But in the East, it always eventually rains again, right? The
Yeah.
drought ends.
Right.
In the West, you can't say the same. It could be multi-year. It could be decadal that we're in drought conditions. So when you have the drought persisting this long in the East, that is abnormal.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to affect some people.
Right.
And now, finally, all of this goes together to our wildland fire
Yeah.
outlook.
Yeah.
Okay, Southern California, looking good. Ironic because you've seen probably multiple fires that
Yeah.
have been burning in Southern California,
Yep.
including a very interesting one, which I think we'll have time to talk about. Yeah, in Santa Rosa Island.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that one's about 18,000 acres.
Hmm.
Here in Northern California, no large fires yet. Great thing.
Hmm.
Starts in the valleys, right? The lower elevations, the grass fires, the shrubs. And then as it gets drier in the higher elevations, the trees dry out and you could have the larger forest fires. So, this is our outlook for the rest of the summer, July, August, above normal
Hmm.
fire potential in Northern California.
Hmm. Now, because this says July, correct?
Yes.
When will the August one come out?
So this is just one
It's just one.
snapshot, right?
Yeah.
They already have the June and August out. August looks exactly the
Okay.
same, and June actually has less towards the northern Sierra.
Okay.
It's white,
Yeah.
and then more towards the Bay Area,
Hmm.
which is interesting. But
Interesting.
let me take a second to talk about this Santa Rosa Island fire. Okay,
Yeah.
so have
Yeah.
you heard of it?
I have.
Yeah.
Just recently, I was off the last couple of days, and so now getting back to work, I briefed on it. But yeah,
S-
go explain away.
Right. In the Channel Islands nearby, there's this little island out there, the Santa Rosa Island. Not much doing. Okay. A few days ago, a 67-year-old man was sailing. He got caught in very rough seas, high winds, and ran aground on this island. Rocky coastline. His boat got damaged. He had to leave the boat and he got stranded on this island. At some point, his boat caught fire. He stayed there overnight, hoping that maybe someone would see the flames, the smoke, and save him. But it wasn't until the next day where he decided to shoot off some flares that finally some passing ships noticed him. Okay. So there is some uncertainty whether the boat's embers or the flares started this fire, but it spread and covered about half the island in the incident area, about 17, 18,000 acres burned. What's going on this island? There are a few hiking trails. People go out there for recreation. A couple of structures burned down, but people don't live out there, right?
Mhm.
This is more about the ecosystem. There are a couple of trees that only grow there naturally, and one other place near the coast of California. One of them is called the Torrey pine tree. And if you are familiar with San Diego, you've heard of Torrey pines.
Mhm.
And then you also have the habitat for some animals that only live there. So it's kind of a travesty that you have half this island burning.
Did the boat catch fire because it hit the rocks and we got sparks, or what was it?
That's what it seems like.
Okay.
I don't know exactly the method of the boat catching fire,
Mhm.
but from the incident reports I was reading, it's more likely that the boat itself, the embers from the boat, started the fire on the island. Fortunately, this guy's okay now, but Man, what a shame for that. That's the biggest fire of the season so far.
And he was the only one on the island, correct? So he
Yeah.
was trying to find. So
Well, I don't know if there were other people there at the time, but it is small, but it's not easy to get around.
yeah,
Another interesting part of it is they were shuttling first responders and firefighters from the mainland on boats to the island to fight the fires. And since there's just a few hiking trails there and it's mostly wilderness and hilly, it's very hard to get around.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So they had a hard time getting containment up on
I'm
that.
hoping this guy doesn't. I don't know what the result would be, but this guy wouldn't be blamed for. Would he be blamed for this if he was trying to save his life? Right? I mean,
I don't know who is culpable for this. I think if anything, what I was reading is sailors saying, he should have known not to be out there to get himself in that situation to begin with. If he's trying to save himself and he sets off a flare and that burns half the island down, that's a shame. That really is a shame.
mhm.
But if you think you're stranded and you need help, like
Yeah. What
I
do you
don't
do?
know.
You, what do you do?
Can you blame him?
No.
Right? Interesting scenario.
Yeah.
All right, we've got more fire season to come, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Thanks for joining us today on Atmospheric Insight. Today I have horticulturist Derek Carwood here from Sacramento area giving us some tips on plants and the weather extremes that we've been going through. Thanks, Derek, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the weather and how plants are relating to it because we have been through a roller coaster of temperatures lately. We had a very hot March and then we cooled back down. And lately, in even the beginning of the week, lows were in the 40s and highs were in the low 60s. And now we're going to be talking about temperatures in the mid 90s by this weekend. So with
Mhm.
California shifting so quickly from cooler temperatures to hotter temperatures, what are the biggest risks and sudden changes for plants, um, indoor and outdoor?
Yeah, so for outdoor plants, anything that is a full sun plant, cacti, succulents, trees, most shrubs like roses and whatnot, they should be fine. We've had enough warm temps so far that the temperature swing isn't going to be too drastic on them. However, any shade-loving plants, any plants that are a little bit more delicate, things like ferns or hostas, camellias, azaleas, that sort of thing. They can definitely experience a lot more heat stress, again, than something like a cactus, right? So keeping them well watered, having a watering schedule that is going to deep water the plants. So instead of just little trickles or just a little bit every day, make sure that when you water, you're watering it very deep water, and so it's really soaking the root ball. It's really getting the entirety of the soil moist, so that they have enough moisture in the soil to draw from throughout the day. Typically I tell folks that sprinklers don't do it, right? So sprinklers are great for something like grass because they have a very shallow root system. But for something that has a deep root system that goes down into the soil, you really need to deep water those plants.
When you're talking about watering, right?
Mhm.
And is there a certain time of the day that's better to water versus not so good?
Yeah, so typically early in the morning or in the evening is the best time of the day. You don't want to water midday because you're going to have a lot, the chance of burning the leaves. But you also have a lot of evaporation that happens during the heat of the day. So in the afternoon or the late afternoon, evening is a really good time, or in the mornings. The only concern that I would ever have with the evenings is you run the risk of fungal diseases. Things like on your grass, you're going to have rust, potentially up here if the grass stays too moist, too humid throughout the evening. But otherwise, during the evening, during the hours when the sun isn't at its strongest, is the best time to water.
When we're talking about plants that have been inside for a good amount of time and you're now
Mhm.
taking them out, will they go into any kind of shock when it's going to be
Absolutely.
extreme heat? And can you leave them outside all day when we're talking temperatures in the mid 90s that we're going to, possibly early next week?
Yeah, so most of the house plants that people have in their homes are tropical plants. So they're in the wild where they're from, they experience warm temperatures. However, they have a lot of humidity and they typically are from understory. So they're underneath the trees in the rainforest. Or they're up in the trees on the branches. And so they have a little bit of a shelter from the equatorial sun.
Mhm.
So if you're bringing something from outside or if from inside and then taking it outside, you don't want to put it in the direct sun,
Okay.
especially when the sun's getting hot and it's super dry. You're not only going to burn the leaves of the plant, which can kill the plant entirely,
Mhm.
but because of the lack of humidity that we have here in the valley, the plants are going to desiccate much more quickly. So if you are going to be bringing your plants outdoors, I do suggest doing that early in the season. Late spring is usually the best time. keeping them in the shade, and then making sure that they're well watered. It's same with fertilizing. If you're going to be fertilizing your plants, fertilize early in the season, rather than the midst of the summer heat, because you're going to have a lot of new growth that isn't necessarily going to be as adapted or um, capable of surviving the heat, right? It's a lot of new fleshy growth that doesn't do as well. So if you're going to be bringing indoor plants outdoors, make sure that you put them in a shaded or protected location, not a direct sun. Some plants from indoors are in fact trees in the wild, and so they can actually adapt to the full sun. But it does take time for them, just like it takes time for us to develop a tan or darker skin during the summertime. Plants have the same thing. They just don't have melanin. They've got carotenoids and whatnot to help with that protection from the sun.
Quick question about gardening too, because if
Mhm.
people maybe are wanting to start, or in the winter they start gardening, putting herbs and stuff in the house, can they take them out now when it's this hot?
Yeah, so you can take them out again though, because you have the kind of a buffeting that happens during during any time of the year in the
Mhm.
house. The temperature swings aren't going to be as crazy, right? So we typically keep our homes anywhere from like mid 60s to mid 70s, right?
Mhm.
Plants are going to be buffeted from the extreme temperatures outside from that. So if you are going to be starting your herbs or other veggies or fruits and whatnot indoors, same thing with your houseplants. Make sure that they are protected
Mhm.
when you take them outside, because not only humidity differences, but the extreme heat temperature, difference, and then the strength of the sun. A lot of folks don't realize that our windows actually will filter some of the UV light, for example,
Mhm.
and so that is going to basically, if you take them from a protected location in the house, even if it's a south facing window, and then you take them outside into the full sun, they're much more likely to burn from the sun, much more likely to desiccate, and they're not going to be hardened off. Basically, is the term that we use. They need to be hardened off before they can handle the outdoor extremes.
Okay, well that's good. That's some good tips there.
Mhm.
One other question I want to touch base with. So what early warning signs would a plant show if it's suffering from heat damage? And because I think a lot of people, when they see maybe it's turning brown, they automatically just want to
For
water it
sure.
more or not. So, what signs would someone see, and then what immediate steps would someone take if you are seeing that happen?
Yeah, so the first signs are typically flagging, right? And flagging is just another name that we use in the industry for wilting, right? So the leaves, and I actually have quite a few out there right now that are starting to do this, because they're going through the same changes in the temperatures, right? And they're adjusting to the higher temperatures. And basically they start to wilt a little bit. And you'll notice, even if they have water, like mine do outside right now, they are watered, they're fine. But because of the temperature difference, they're starting to flag. So what that means is they're not able to transport water from the roots up into the stem and the leaves, and transpire, right? So they're not bringing it up quickly enough. So they're starting to wilt. They're starting to flag, and so that's usually the first sign. Another sign that people might see is they'll have kind of a faded look, and so the leaves will go from like a nice green color, to before they brown, they'll actually start to yellow. And basically what that is the chlorophyll, so that what makes the plant green, is starting to die off. And so that usually, again, is because they don't have any pigments in there or not as many pigments, to help protect the chlorophyll, to help protect the entire system of the plant. And so it starts to break down. So with plants, because they require chlorophyll to grow and to survive, once they start to burn from the sun, it's not like us where we can just shed our skin and hopefully not have too much damage. Plants can't do that. So oftentimes, especially with houseplants, for example, you take them outside, they start to burn. You don't notice it right away. It's going to take some time, but within a couple of days, you'll start to see that fading, and then usually it's too late at that point. So look for wilting. Again, keep them out of the full sun. Try not to fertilize too much as we get along in the season, and just keep them with enough moisture to hopefully keep transpiring and do well.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time
Mhm.
today, Derek, and we
For
look
sure.
forward to talking with you sometime in the near future.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Riley, I was locked in during that whole interview. I've
Yeah.
had some plants that I've literally burned by taking outside,
Hmm.
and they couldn't recover from it.
Yep.
Some
Man,
really interesting
I'm right there
tips.
with you.
Ugh, man. All right. I wish I knew all that information sooner, but now you know it.
Yeah.
I'll be right back with Genevieve Melzer. She takes us to an outdoor business, and we talk about how weather impacts them.
From sunny spring patios to Sacramento's intense summer heat, weather can completely change the experience for outdoor businesses. Today, I'm at the Garden at the Line talking about how everything from triple-digit temperatures to rainy day forecasts impact their business, events, and customer experience.
The Garden at the Line is the newest beer garden in Sacramento. It's located on Elvis Boulevard in East Sacramento, and it is a gorgeous, green, lush space. It almost feels like you're sitting in your backyard, but even better than that because there's over 60 taps, and we're connected to our sibling concept, The Line, which houses 10 different restaurant concepts. Some of the best restaurants in Sacramento do their to-go service here and directly bring their food out into the garden when you sit and order tableside.
How much does weather impact your business day to day?
Weather is definitely a factor, but we've spent the last year really improving this space to be an all-weather environment. From the misters, the shade, the new shade structure that we're building for this summer. It is cool and comfortable in the summer. And in the winter, we keep the heaters on. It's really cozy. We have blankets for folks. We have an indoor and outdoor space as well. So if it ever does rain, you can take your business inside, fully air conditioned, fully heated in the winter, and just a really great all-weather space to still feel like you're out in nature in Sacramento.
How far ahead do you monitor the forecast?
We check the weather often. Usually it's about 10 days out is realistically what we can expect. Things change, but we're looking at the forecast about three times a day on our business days. We have to make sure we have, giant screens out here right now for the FIFA World Cup that's coming up, and different elements in the space that we need to be able to react quickly if there's, the misters are on because it's hot or there's rain rolling in. So for us, checking that weather constantly is really important.
What types of weather conditions bring your biggest crowds?
The best weather conditions for peak enjoyment here at the Garden at the Line is probably a nice spring day with a little heat in the air, or a nice fall afternoon with a little bit of crispness in the air. It's also a really great time to book your events during the spring and the winter, although it is super cozy environment here on the inside for Christmas and holiday parties as well.
Are there certain seasons that are especially important to you here at the Garden?
I would say because our spring and our fall are already really comfortable and it's an enjoyable climate to experience this space, I would say that the summer and the winter are really important for us because we have the World Cup coming up. We're going to be hosting watch parties for 2 months long here and really capturing that business and creating a fan-focused, high-energy environment for people to come and watch football, soccer. And then in the Christmas time, in the winter time, holiday season, we've built this space for events, and so we really want people to book their private events, their corporate events, and enjoy the holiday season with us.
What adjustments do you make when it starts to get hot outside?
We do have a misting situation. We are fully set up for very warm weather. We can turn these misters on. They cool people down right away without getting them wet. Right now, we have these giant awnings that are providing shade. We have a new turf that's gone in to create more of a soft space underneath your feet, like you're really walking on grass. That keeps you cool as well. And then shortly, we'll have a permanent overhead structure that's creating shade and coolness in the summer, and then kind of warmth containment and that cozy feeling in the winter.
Do you notice changes in customers' habits during hot summer months?
When it's very hot here, people will tend to wait until the heat's cooled down even just a few degrees. So at sunset time, going into evening, we'll see the crowds come out to be able to finally breathe a sigh of relief from the heat. They are reaching for our beers. We, like I said, have over 60 taps. We have imported and domestic beer. We also get a lot of allocations, so people do come looking for those super cold, crispy beers that you can't just find at any bar or buy in any store. And we have a really wonderful menu of low ABV cocktails that are based around wine. Sake is one of them. We work a lot with, like I said, the wine-based or sparkling wine cocktails, so those are a really big hit to cool you down quickly as well.
Join us next week for part 2 of our interview at Garden at the Line to find out how rainy weather affects this outdoor business.
Riley, looks like a really cool place, and those misters make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you again for joining us, our Atmospheric Insight. We'll see you next week.